Hi, this is Nancy with Quilting with Nancy and On Point TV, and thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a little bit of a hectic day moment. I have a bit of a cold, so I got that little bit of a frogginess going on. Oops, sorry about this. I got to turn down that volume on the skip that ad and turn that down. Okay, sorry about that. Technology gets me every time. So I sound a little bit froggy, getting over a cold from yesterday. I'd planned on doing this video yesterday, but then decided instead to take a sick day, which is kind of odd. You know, when you're an independent contractor, you don't really get many sick days. But after I took it, Bill said that I could have 5 more yet this year. So I thought that was very sweet of him to offer those 5 to me, seeing as how, yeah, I'm the boss. But anyways, so thank you all for joining. Excuse me. I was just going to welcome Cindy and Candace and Sue and Maria. Thank you all very much for joining me. So what we're going to do today is talk about a new fabric line from Sue Penn. Now, I just did a little video, posted a little video, doing a little bit in depth about this new fabric line from Sue Penn for FreeSpirit. Now, if you've been watching me for any length of time, you know that I am a huge Sue Penn fan, personally and professionally. I love, love, love the fabrics that she creates. When FreeSpirit picked her up as a designer, I thought they'd done the best thing they could have ever done. I really think that it means a lot to the quilting world when people like Sue, who's been a part of fabric designing for so long, now gets to be a little bit in the spotlight too. So I wanted to start out by kind of showing you some of the, hello everybody. Oh, wow, lots of people joining us. Thank you so much. I want to first show you some of the quilts that I've done with some of the previous Sue Penn collections. So for instance, let me get down to this. This is only half of the quilt, but this was the first quilt that I designed and did a whole series of classes on using Sue Penn's very first collection. This one was Garden Delight, I think, something like that. Oh my gosh, it was so gorgeous. Those big flowers you see in those corners of that setting corners on that quilt, those are like 24 inches. They were huge and they worked out so great in this quilt. So I used her entire collection for this, and this is my Great Lakes Voyage. So I've got an entire video series on working through the Great Lakes Voyage and a book, either ebook or hard copy book that you can look at on my website, which remember the new website is www.quiltingwithnancy.com, which kind of sort of just takes you back to the On Point, but it's just easier to remember that it's just the Quilting with Nancy. So here is a Lone Star that I made using some of Sue's fabrics for the setting triangles. So I used, actually, my friend Lori Verbrugge actually hand dyed this series of blues that I did this Lone Star with. This particular one I don't have a video series on, but of course I do have a video series on making a Lone Star and the Lone Star chart book if you're interested in making more, a Lone Star like this. This was super fun. Sue came out with this fabric that was a ombre, and it started at the top of the fabric, the 42 inches, as a bright yellow, and then went all the way down to a dark blue. And the first thing I thought of when she showed it to me is a Bargello quilt using just one fabric. So you can find the Bargello series and pattern that I did where I show you how to do this, and then I just added fused circles cut out from the fabric line. I love this quilt. I think that just really is the epitome. And I'm working on a new Bargello with some of Sue's fabrics, but honestly, I did not have a picture of it to show you. This, for those of you that went on the On Point on the Lake quilt retreat this past April, this was our beginner quilt. And Sue's fabric, you can see, is used on the setting squares, that big kind of starburst kind of a fabric. And then also on the border is her, I think she calls it a painted plaid or a modern plaid. That's what it was. And these are all from past collections. This is one that I've not done the video series yet, but I do have the book done. I just need to get the time to do a whole video series on it. This is my 4 crossings, and I used her fabric in the big squares and then also on the triangles on the border. And last but not least, Sue is an acrylic artist, and she uses her stencils with acrylic paint to paint the fabrics that she creates. And so I actually did a painting series using her painting stencils to make this quilt. And that, of course, was super fun. Now, the fabrics that we are looking at today and using today start with her butterfly fields. Now, keep in mind, this fabric is not available until October 2023. So I'm giving you all a heads up that this is coming, that you want to contact your favorite local quilt shop or your favorite online shop and let them know that you would be interested in purchasing these fabrics to make this quilt or any other quilt that you're thinking about. Those of you that may be the owner of a local quilt shop or an online shop, you want to actually contact FreeSpirit. Contact your fabric rep and let them know that you want to take a look at the Butterfly Fields collection and all the fabrics that go with it. So this is the main piece, and this is a 24-inch repeat, ginormous butterflies, which is why I made the quilt that I'm making with the big blocks. These are just a few of the other pictures of the fabrics. Now, these ones actually, she uses, so I mentioned before that Sue is an acrylic mixed media artist, and she actually created these on her gel press plate, which is exactly how I create my own fabrics, but I'm only, making something 8 by 10 or 12 by 12. Sue makes it on the gel press plate, and then because she does all this wild and crazy stuff with her computer, then turns it into the fabric. Now, this, honest to Pete, is one of my favorite pieces in this entire collection, but I didn't even use it in this quilt. It just didn't work for this quilt at this time. Am I going to get yardage of this? Yes, I'm going to get yardage of this because I think it's fabulous. This is actually the background to the butterfly. So look at this piece here. Now look at this big butterfly, and the silhouette of the butterfly is actually the fireworks fabric. So she took the overlay of that kind of striped ombre and put it over, and I don't know how she did it. She's just like, amazing. And then this is I think this one was called Starburst. Oh, you know what? I just realized I missed one of the quilts. So this is the last one in the not the last one. There's other ones I'm not showing you, but these are the big ones. Now, I did miss one quilt from a collection of hers. This was the latest one. This was Happy Blooms. And I did a whole video and have a pattern on how you can make these super simple, no curved piecing blocks to make the Happy Blooms. So all of that being said, so that we can actually get started working on the quilt today. So there is a pattern. So the pattern is available on my website, of course. You can go to quiltingwithnancy.com and find the pattern. I think I even put it in the link below if you're interested in just a quick link. It's just an E pattern. And this quilt is 80 inches square, big blocks. I do have a friend that wrote a song about big blocks, and at some point I'm going to figure out how to sing that song for you all. Dana is pretty anxious for me to give it a try, but I'm just not sure that I can do it the justice it deserves. Her husband actually wrote it. It's really cute, and it's all about big blocks. So these are big blocks. Now, the advantage to making a quilt with big blocks is it goes quicker, right? That just makes perfect sense. As opposed to like the Snowflake Lone Star that I did, where there were like 25 pieces in each of the diamonds. With this, the blocks themselves go pretty quick. And it all comes down to the fabric you use. Now, I love what I've done, honestly, with what I've done with Sue's Butterfly Fields. But imagine, if you will, using any of the other large prints that you have in your stash for a quilt like this. It's the chance to make a quilt that looks like it's on point, but it's not. And of course, everybody knows that quilts are better when they're on point. And using the large fabric. So here we have that big butterfly. Now, this particular quilt, because there actually is a stripe going through the quilt and it is ombre, in the pattern, I explained to you how you want to have a set A and a set B so that you can keep that stripe going up and down. Now, do I think that if I had not done that, if I had just cut the squares, cut them on the diagonal and placed them willy-nilly, it still would have been gorgeous. And honestly, you would have all been going, what was she talking about? Why did she think we needed to get fussy with that? You don't need to. I just did it. So in the pattern, I do explain to you how you're able to cut those on the different directions so that you can get a set A and a set B. All right. So here we go. Here is just a super simple run through on how this little thing is made. We are going to start with 5-inch squares. All right. These are the two that I am matching up for this particular placement of this block. I'm going to take and draw a diagonal line. And this is all going to be working with the idea of when I'm working with half square triangles that I always make them a little bit bigger. So in truth, this is going to be a 4-inch finish. So this should be a 4 7/8 inch block, but instead I cut it 5 so then I can trim it down. Now from here, I can take it to my machine and I can sew a scant 1/4 of an inch on either side of this drawn line. If your machine does not have the ability to move its needle to the right or to the left, then you are going to want to draw a second and third line, and these will be your sewing lines, making sure that you've drawn it on the scant 1/4 of an inch, not a fat 1/4 of an inch, so you'll have enough fabric. So those would be your sewing lines. After you have sewn, here we go, mine has already been sewn. Then you're going to cut it, press it flat first. I always like to set it first, make it really, really flat. Then cut it on the diagonal. And in the case of this quilt, I pressed them all up toward the textures. Now, I did not talk about these solid-ish fabrics throughout this quilt. These are called textures. The cool thing about Sue Penn's textures, lots of cool things, honestly, is that they go with all of her previous lines. And look at the detail. I mean, this for me is a solid. I am not a user of solid fabrics. That would be totally a personal choice. For me, this is a solid fabric, and she uses her stencils to create this. Here's another one of her solids in the textures line, and this one is the polka dots. And I'll show you a green one and a red one coming up. So you're going to take all of these and you're going to press them toward the textures fabrics. Then you've got to trim it down. Now there are 2 different ways you can trim it down. So let me show you one. The first one is, let me see if I can get there, so you can see it. Well, there's a big glare, but imagine that glare's not there. There it is. That works. The block lock. This is a ruler that's been around for, I don't know, I want to say 10 years now, maybe even longer. Really, really popular when you get them at the big quilt shows. Your local quilt shops can carry these, and your online shops can carry them also. It's really wonderful for trimming down blocks, and I use the half square triangle and the flying geese version of it quite often. What I love about the half square triangle is that this 1 6-inch half square triangle can cut half square triangles from, like 1/2 inch all the way up to 6 inches. It gives you a huge variety of things that you can cut with. So that makes it really, it's a bargain when you think about it, because I'm going to show you another way that I think is actually easier, but it costs more money because you can only do one size. So this, you can do lots of different sizes. So the idea is you're going to take your square, your half square triangle that's been constructed. Remember, I pressed the seam up toward the textures fabrics. Now I'm going to take my block lock, and the block lock actually has a groove on the back, and the idea is that seam is now locked in. Boy, I wish I could make that go away, but I can't. I have to have light. So that is going to be locked into, the seam is going to be locked into that little groove. Then you're going to take your rotary cutter, and I'm positioned it so that here's my 4 1/2, so that it's a little bit, I can trim a little bit all the way around it. But being as it's in that groove, it really holds its place really, really well. Then you're going to put some pressure on the ruler as you turn it, then slide it. Now, after you've done the slide, then you position it right into the size that you want. So the 4 1/2, boy, that glare is bad. Sorry about that. Don't know any way to make that glare go away. So there we have our as close to perfect as you can get 4 1/2 inch square. And that's what we want for this quilt. Another method for doing this is my favorite little OmniGrid spinning mat. I love this spinning mat. I've used it in lots and lots and lots of my different videos. You've seen me use it. And in this case, whoa, let's do it like this. We're going to use a 4 1/2 inch square, because that 4 1/2, that's the exact the size that we need. Now on the back of the ruler, I have actually put some of this. Let me grab that. Some Invisigrip. So I put the Invisigrip on the back of the ruler, and then I also put, I don't think I have the package for it right now. This is a raised, oh my goodness, I can't remember. It's a no slip, no grip. I feel bad for not having the product here, but it's a raised piece that can stick on the back of a ruler. I'm not a fan of things that stick on rulers that make it so I can't slide my ruler, but I love using this for this technique. So I placed that grippy thing right on the diagonal. So now when I bring, oops, not that square, the square that's not been trimmed would be the best choice. I'm going to place that grippy so that it is on the low end. Wow, that works. All right, so it's on the low end. So the seam is pressed toward the purple. So the grippy is on the low end. And with that Invisigrip in place, it's going to really hold nicely. And I love this. This is so easy. You just cut and spin. Cut and spin. Cut and spin. And this is so nice when you've got lots and lots and lots of a particular half square triangle to make. So like the 2.5 half square triangle would be a really, really popular one. That's the one that I've used many other times before. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you have, and these little ones like this are not really very expensive. So consider this as a way to trim the blocks, the block lock or something like this. All right, so now most of the work is done. From here, you are just going to assemble into your blocks. So we've got block one, I'm sorry, row one. Whoops, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit this all on here. Row 2 and 3, and then the triangle, I don't know if you can see it, is way up here. This is going to be a constructed half square triangle with all of your pieces. There is a part in the pattern where you actually take a 5-inch square and cut it on the diagonal for these triangles here. All right. So then you're going to piece that together into this. So now it is all pieced. Then you're going to take your large triangles. So in this case, here is my large triangle for this one. That is going to, this is a 17-inch block. So my cutting table camera space is not actually 17 inches. So you can't see the whole thing. But just going to take a large half square triangle, which reminds me, anytime I'm dealing with things like half square triangles, and honest to Pete, if you've watched any of my videos, you know more times than not, I am going to spray size my fabrics ahead of time. This is one of those cases where it really is imperative. I really think it's imperative to take the time to spray size the fabrics before you cut them into the strips and the squares and the triangles. That will be sure that the fabrics are all stable before you do any cutting. Then when it comes time that you're actually piecing these, they will hold together. You won't have any stretching going on. And this would be one of those times that I would say saturate the fabric. There are some times you might want to mist the fabrics. Keeping in mind, my saturate is saturate. I mean, I spray enough on that to make it really wet. Now, if you don't want to go that wet, maybe do 2 coats. But you want the fabrics to be almost as stiff as a piece of copy paper. And it just seems like until I get somebody in a class to actually show them how stiff that is, nobody quite believes me. So this would be a time, go that extra mile. Spray size these fabrics before you do any cutting of them, right? I think that's a really important thing to do to make your piecing even that much more precise. All right. So now we're going to take this, we're going to fit it onto the triangle, matching up that edge there, matching up these edges here. Oops. Get that all in there. Use lots and lots of pins. This is my pin cushion. If you're interested in that, it's available on the website too. You'll get this all pinned into place. Then you're going to sew that with your scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that should be getting you to right about here. Oops, maybe down here a little bit. Right about here to where you can see the Xing of the fabrics are right there. And that will get you your large blocks. So then you'll have big blocks. Got big blocks. All right, so then it's pieced, just like that. That is a 17-inch block. This quilt is 80 inches with only 16 blocks. So you make the 16 blocks you created in the design using, there's a set one. Oh, I think I actually have that done too. Hold on, let me find that. So there's the set one block, the set slightly difference in the all come together to make the quilt so that you get this design going down. So I use the purple here and the blue here and the fabulous colors. Then there's the border. The border I chose is using the striped fabric. So this is the striped fabric in Sue's new collection. This is the blue textures. I want it to be mitered. So in the pattern, I actually tell you with the blue fabric to cut the long pieces ahead of time so that you've got these big long strips, length of grain to use on your border. And then the stripe is actually cut and pieced, but with a straight line instead of a diagonal. And then you're going to do the mitered border. And look at how the colors actually match up on this mitered border, because the way that the stripe is made and with piecing it right in the middle. So this right here, you can't see it. This is my seam where I took the two 42-inch pieces and just seamed them so that they were actually equal. So then it's symmetrical. So look what happens when you get this cool miter going on the stripe. That's the main reason I wanted to do a mitered border, because I love the way that the stripe does that. Now, I don't have the ability right now to show you how to do that multi-stripped mitered border. But if you will go back just, I think it's a month and a half or so, I did that with the Snowflake Lone Star, where I talked to you about taking all the strips, how to measure it, how to press up and down, but then you can do a mitered border if you choose. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want on that. I just like the idea of a mitered border, especially when I can get those colors to match together. And that's it. So there you go. This is the Sue Penn Butterfly Fields collection, available October 2023. I will be doing a video probably in a month on doing the quilting on this, although I'm pretty sure I'm just going to do an all over meandering, because it just let the fabric do the job. There's no reason to do any super fancy, not fabulous. Of course it's going to be fabulous. Any super fancy quilting on a quilt like this. My intention is just do an all over meandering on it, probably put a wool batting on it so I can have the quilting be a little bit bigger, because there's not a lot of seams on it, so I don't need to secure any seams. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions? Well, thank you very much. I'm glad I shared too. It is a really, really nice fabric line. Again, if you're a quilt shop owner, be sure you contact FreeSpirit Fabrics. If you are a quilt fabric lover, be sure you contact your local shop and or your favorite online shop and let them know that you would be interested in purchasing Sue Penn's new fabric line, Butterfly Fields. And that's all I have for you today. So if you got any questions, you can always, always, always send me an email to quiltingwithnancy@gmail.com. My website is www.quiltingwithnancy.com. And that's where you can purchase the pattern. And there is a link below for that. Thank you very much for watching. Oops, got to find the closing slide. There it is.